Unit 59. Political, Social, and Economic Development in the United States from 1945. Political relevance at international level. Present-day literary background. Picture this. It's 1945. The world lies in ruins. Cities bombed, nations broken, millions grieving. And yet, across the Atlantic, one country rises almost untouched, with factories running, cities intact, and an economy ready to lead. That country is the United States of America. What happened next shaped the world you live in today. From the Cold War to the internet, from Martin Luther King's dream to Silicon Valley's algorithms, from Hollywood blockbusters to the global economy that affects the price of your coffee. But there's another story that runs parallel to politics and power, a story told by poets, playwrights, and novelists who gave voice to the struggles, hopes, and fears of their time. Today, we take you on that journey, a journey through history and literature, to understand how the United States became not just a world leader, but a mirror of the modern world. Welcome to this presentation on the political, social, and economic development of the United States from 1945 to the present day, along with its literary background. Since World War II, the United States has played a leading role in shaping global affairs. In recent decades, however, this leadership has been increasingly contested. China has emerged as a formidable global power, challenging the United States in economic influence, technological advancement, military capability, and geopolitical strategy. The ongoing rivalry between these two nations is shaping a new world order where economic alliances, technological dominance, and military tensions, especially in regions like the South China Sea and Taiwan, are redefining international relations. Many analysts suggest that China could soon surpass the United States as the next global superpower, making this historical and literary exploration more relevant than ever as we witness a shifting balance of global power. In this session, we will explore key historical developments, the country's international influence, and the evolution of American literature. This overview is based on renowned works by Rogers, Ward-and-Trent, and Ford. Historical background. Since 1945, the United States has emerged as a global superpower, shaping world politics, economics, and culture. In this section, we will review the main political and social changes by decade and explain how the US became a key player on the international stage. Throughout the second half of the 20th century, the US experienced rapid economic growth and took a leading role in international affairs. Key strategies included the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, the creation of NATO, and efforts to contain communism. These moves positioned the US as a defender of Western interests and a dominant global power. The 1940s. In the 1940s, the US emerged from World War II as the only major industrial power left intact. President Truman introduced the Truman Doctrine to counter Soviet influence and launched the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. The creation of NATO in 1949 strengthened Western alliances. This decade marks the beginning of the Cold War and America's leadership in the capitalist world. The 1950s. The 1950s were defined by the Korean War and the rise of anti-communist policies. The US supported South Korea while the Soviet Union backed the North. Domestically, the civil rights movement began to challenge racial segregation. The space race started with the Soviet launch of Sputnik in 1957. Socially, this was a decade of prosperity for many, but inequality persisted. The 1960s saw major international tensions with events like the Cuban Missile Crisis. President Kennedy's assassination shocked the world. The Vietnam War escalated under President Johnson, sparking protests across the US. Social movements for civil rights and gender equality gained momentum, reflecting deep divisions in American society. The 1970s featured diplomatic efforts to reduce Cold War tensions. President Carter focused on human rights, while relations with China improved. However, economic challenges like the energy crisis and the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan marked the limits of US influence. The Vietnam War ended, leaving a lasting impact on American politics and society. The 1980s. Under President Reagan, the US pursued military expansion and anti-communist policies. The Cold War intensified, with conflicts in Central America and the Middle East. Despite economic growth, Reagan's administration faced controversies like the Iran-Contra scandal. The decade closed with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. 1.1.6, the 1990s. In the 1990s, President Clinton promoted economic growth and international diplomacy. The US played a key role in peace efforts in the Balkans, but also faced domestic scandals. Relations with Cuba worsened. The decade ended with America maintaining its global leadership in politics and economics. 1.7, the early 21st century. The early 21st century was marked by the 9/11 attacks and the War on Terror. Presidents George W. Bush, Obama, Trump, and Biden faced challenges including terrorism, economic crises, and political division. Recent events include Trump's return to power in 2024, sparking nationwide protests and controversy over his policies. Ghent, US political relevance. Since its intervention in World War II, the United States has positioned itself as a dominant economic and military superpower. While in the 20th century, the Soviet Union and Japan were its main rivals, the 21st century has seen China rise as a serious competitor. This emerging rivalry with China is reshaping global power dynamics, with competition over trade, technology, and military influence in strategic regions such as Taiwan and the South China Sea. The United States has historically used its leadership to establish global institutions like the IMF and NATO. However, in today's geopolitical climate, NATO's role is increasingly questioned, particularly regarding its ability to adapt to new global threats beyond its original Cold War purpose. American dominance has been reinforced by a self-sufficient economy and the global status of the US dollar. Through bilateral trade agreements and multinational corporations, the US has shaped economic relationships with both developed and developing nations. Its cultural influence extends globally, from technology and sports to music, cinema, and lifestyle trends. Despite its strength, the United States faces internal and external challenges, including economic inequality, social unrest, and the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis. These factors make the current global balance of power more uncertain than ever before. Literary background. The social and political changes in the US have deeply influenced its literature. Writers have responded to themes such as war, identity, social justice, and technology. This section highlights the key features and authors of 20th and 21st century American literature. Main literary features. Post-World War II literature reflects a world facing disintegration, violence, and change. Writers explored fragmented styles and gave voice to outsiders like Southerners, Jews, blacks, and women. Movements such as postmodernism, feminism, and the Beat generation challenged traditional narratives and explored new forms of expression. Main authors overview. Across poetry, drama, and prose, American authors have addressed major social and personal issues. Their works reflect the diversity of the American experience and offer powerful insights into contemporary life. Poetry. American poetry since 1945 ranges from traditional to experimental styles. Robert Lowell combined tradition and experimentation. Philip Levine gave voice to industrial workers. Anne Sexton explored mental health and women's issues. Allen Ginsberg represented the Beat movement with works like Howl. Sylvia Plath addressed alienation and mental illness with raw intensity. American drama after World War II explored social injustice, personal failure, and identity. Eugene O'Neill pioneered modern American theater. Arthur Miller exposed the American dream's illusions in Death of a Salesman. Tennessee Williams portrayed human frustration in A Streetcar Named Desire. Edward Albee introduced absurdist theater with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Post-war prose reflected the complexities of modern life. Social realists like Bellow and Roth examined identity and society. Postmodernists like Pynchon and Barth experimented with narrative form. Minority voices like Morrison, Walker, and Kingston enriched American literature with stories of race, gender, and cultural heritage. Writers like Heller, Vonnegut, and Mailer used satire and absurdity to address war and society. Conclusion. Since 1945, the United States has shaped and been shaped by political, social, and cultural change. Its literature reflects these transformations, offering a window into American identity and global influence. Exploring these connections helps students develop critical thinking, cultural awareness, and language skills, making literature a powerful tool in education. Bibliography: Cunliffe, M. 1993, American Literature to 1900. Ford, B. 1988, The New Pelican Guide to English Literature. Ward and Trent, 2000, The Cambridge History of English and American Literature. For more information, join us at our YouTube channel or Instagram account.